everybody. Let's see, we'll make this so it's not angled so interestingly. Great. Okay, welcome to Life Science Live. We're going to be talking a little bit about hibernation today and a few clarifications on some of these definitions that are up on the board. I did see someone comment early this morning or maybe late last night, and they said, are you going to explain the difference between hibernation and brumation? And thus we will, and thus we're going to do it. So we'll give people just a second to log on if they're going to. For those who are new, my name is Sarah. I'm a student educator here at the Life Science Museum, and this is Life Science Live. Every Friday we come in, we talk about a different topic in life science. If there's one that you really want to hear about, feel free to drop me a comment below, or you can send a message to the Bee Museum on Facebook, and I see those too. So, yes, or if you have any questions about today's content, feel free to drop it below, and we'll answer those as well. So, let's get into it. So we're going to talk about these definitions for a little bit, and then talk about some of the adaptations that some local animals here in Utah have, which help them combat the winter. There are a few things that animals do other than hibernation to help survive the winter. So, first, hibernation is the process by which animals slow down their heart rate, their activity, which we could also say their metabolic rate. So this is the rate at which they're consuming food or using their energy, their respiratory rate, so how much they breathe. This also includes their heart rate as well to survive these winter conditions. Now, the difference between these two, between hibernation and brumation, is that hibernation is this dormancy period / process for warm-blooded animals. And for brumation, this is the same process. Essentially, the same things are going on in the body, but it looks a little bit different because this is being done by cold-blooded animals, or ectotherms, okay? Endotherms and ectotherms. So, in looking at that, you're thinking, oh my goodness, what do these cold-blooded or ectothermic animals do in the winter? It's tough because they're relying on the environment to regulate their body temperature. And so reptiles and other animals really struggle in the winter. For example, when we used to have animals here at the Bee Museum, anytime we would come visit schools, our snakes would be on hot water bottles in the car, the whole thing in the winter, so that they were perfectly warm the entire time. So it's tough. So what they're doing, these animals are doing, is they're going to go through that same hibernation process. Their heart rate is going to be significantly down. Their core body temperature is also going to decrease. The rate at which their breathing is decreasing. And it's tough because they're probably going to bury themselves underground or be inside of cracks or underneath rocks where they can really squeeze in and be tight. And their hibernation or dormancy period, which is their brumation period, is much smaller. For hibernation and our warm-blooded or endothermic animals, which are regulating their own body temperature, just like us, they can be in this state for days, they could be in this state for weeks, or even months for this hibernation period. And we're going to talk about that with some of these other animals here. For example, the squirrel is actually a true hibernator, which we'll talk about what that means, but a true hibernator meaning that they're absolutely asleep, and if you are to try to wake them up, their body is probably going to reject that stimulus and they're going to stay asleep. So, yes, and this last one is estivation, which is a little bit different than these ones but has some of the same effects. So this is the same thing. An animal is going to be lowering that heart rate, lowering their breathing rate and their activity in response to the environment instead, whereas these ones are cold environments. We'll put like a snowflake by them. This is my, oh wow, that's a really good snowflake. Okay, for a cold environment, estivation is that reaction, that dormancy process in a very hot environment. So this would be a survival technique in an area that's very hot and dry. So these are just reactions to the environment that help our animals survive. So let's talk about a few animals that are native here to Utah and how they're going to react in the environment to survive this winter. The first one is the mountain snail, which I'm going to draw a quick picture of if I can. This is our snail shell. The snail does something really, really interesting in the winter. It's going to cover itself with a mucus layer, and so it will seal off this bottom portion of the shell and kind of create itself a bit of a casing around the shell so as to stay completely liquid and so it doesn't dry out or freeze during the winter months. And snails are going to be burying themselves underground in order to stay a little bit warm. But this is one of their unique adaptations, is they have this mucus layer that basically seals off the shell, kind of like a tomb, and they just stay inside of there so that they stay moist throughout the winter. The next one is our snowshoe hare, which I think we know what's going on here. Our snowshoe hare is going to completely lose its coat, its summer coat, which is a dark brown or maybe like a red, a darker color, okay? And it's going to grow its winter coat, which is going to come through with a double layer, which is a little bit more resistant to water and is white. So they completely change colors in order to camouflage better and also just be warmer. So they have this double layer coat, and that top layer changes color in preparation for the winter. The next one is the Hori Bat, and I have one with me to show you guys what it looks like. Also is native to Utah, and that word Hori means white or frosted tips. So this is what this bat looks like. It's not very big. It's very fuzzy. So we can get it really close so you can see it. Good, good, good. Great. So this is our Hori Bat. So what this animal is going to be doing during the winter is most bats actually hibernate. Most do. But this bat, which again is native to Utah, actually is going to migrate. This is the way that they are going to react to that cold temperature. They're going to migrate down the coast, down to Southern California or down to Baja, where it is a lot warmer. And so that is where they're going. And they're going to leave about this time. They're leaving Utah right now. They leave during September and October, and they'll be back to Utah in April or May. So this is our Hori Bat. So one way to survive the winter is just to leave, is just to not. So again, that's our Hori Bat. That's what they do. Okay. Our next one is our deer. So deer are normally in higher elevation during the summer. It's a little bit cooler for them. But what they're doing all summer is they are munching and eating the entire summer. They have a big fat reserve inside of their body, and they're preparing to eat a lot less during the winter. And similar to some of our other animals up here, they also are going to be growing their winter coat, which is going to be having a double layer on it. Deer are really cool. They have a lot of glands in their body that excrete oil. So the outside of their fur is pretty oily and water resistant to kind of help them stay warm as well. But they have a huge fat reserve, which also is going to be extra fat, is going to keep you warmer. But they're also planning to metabolically use that fat as a storage system when food is more sparse. And they're going to come down from that higher elevation down into lower elevation. And mostly this is because it's a little bit warmer, but also there's food down there. They really rely on the Forest Service and people putting out salt licks and all of those things, and so they know that they can feed at lower elevations, which is kind of where we are as well. So that's why you see them so much in the neighborhood. Our last animal that we're going to talk about really, really quick is the squirrel. So I did not know how important the squirrel was, and same thing with chipmunks and some other animals of that size, to talking about hibernation. There are very few animals that are true hibernators. So for example, there's the phrase, don't wake up a sleeping bear from hibernation. That would be so bad. You really could do that. You really could wake up a bear. Squirrels, you totally couldn't do it. If you were to find a squirrel that was hibernating underground and you were to try to wake it up, it probably wouldn't wake up. Probably not. They are true hibernators. And something amazing about this is depending, and for all of these animals this is true, when we're talking about hibernation and brumation and estivation too, the length of time that animals are in this dormancy period depends on their age, it depends on their gender, it also depends on the conditions that they're avoiding in terms of length of time. So a squirrel, for example, could potentially hibernate for a full 10 months, Now, that being said, this would be very, very rare because a squirrel that is juvenile, so like a teenager squirrel that's a boy, can barely hibernate for 4 to 5 months. Just barely. They're barely making it. So it really depends on their gender and the conditions that they're avoiding. But the same thing, because they're true hibernators, they're completely dormant, so their beats per minute on their heart is going to be less than 10, and their body temperature is going to drop just above freezing. So they're really just taking in the environment, and they are gone. And part of the reason why they can handle so much of an extreme temperature change in their body is because they are, again, those true hibernators. They're completely dormant. They are out. they're totally out. So what squirrels do is they have their reserve and they eat and they prepare all summer for this winter. So they're constantly eating, and then they're just going to rely on that fat reserve. Some other animals similar to the squirrel, for example, a pika or a pika, which we have here in Utah, they kind of look like a rat, but they have longer legs and they can kind of jump around a little bit. They do not hibernate, but people kind of confuse them with the squirrels because what they do is they store all of these foods, and they create haystacks. That's what they call them, is haystacks, and they save them under tires or under anything, under trees, holes, and they have these little, basically they make these little buffets that stay together, and that's where they're gonna stay. I see we're getting some comments about how squirrels are the literal best. Let's see what else it says. Oh yeah, they know, definitely. Squirrels are so smart. So anyways, these are a few of our animals that are here in Utah. Make sure that when you're out hiking this week or out in nature that you're looking for animals. See what they're doing, because the weather has changed a lot in the past couple weeks. It's gotten a lot colder and hot, back and forth. See what animal behaviors you can see. See if animals are gathering food. See if they're stashing it away. Look for these animals. See if you can see a squirrel. Maybe you already feel like maybe they're gone. Look at if you see a hare. See if its colors are changing. And quiz your friends on hibernation, brumation, and estivation. Again, hibernation is for warm-blooded animals. Endothermic. Brumation is ectothermic, cold-blooded animals. And estivation has to do with the heat. But these are a little bit about dormancy and the way that animals are reacting to their environment in preparation for this winter. If you guys have any comments or any questions, feel free to drop them below and I will comment back to you. But we want to shout out our commenter for bringing this up because this was cool. I enjoyed reading about it this morning. So thank you guys very much. We'll see you later.